Good morning. Good morning, and welcome to the informal meeting of the Savannah-Chatham County Board of Public Education. This meeting is live streamed. This is an informal meeting. We just get information at this meeting. We do not take any votes during this meeting. I am going to make one adjustment. We have some people who need to be somewhere else very soon, so we're going to have our tax assessor do their presentation first. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And thank you all very much for bumping us up so we can inundate you all with about 2 hours full of our annual report. I'm sure you all have a copy up there. I can trim it down to about 5 or 10 minutes, though. But my name is Corey Gillenwater. I currently serve as the Chief Appraiser for the Tax Assessors or Board of Assessors. You'll hear them both used synonymously. And we do property values. So we're here today to talk to you all about what we saw in 2023. 2024 is not done yet. I know you all have lots of questions about that. I'll field as many as I can, but we are just not quite ready to talk about what 2024 is telling us. But 23 was quite a banner year that we saw across Chatham County. In fact, the School Boards Digest alone increased about 11%. And in previous years, 2% was a big increase. Last year was an 11% increase over 2022, which amounts to about $2 billion in assessed value. And when I say assessed value, I mean the 40% values that are used for digest calculations and millage rates and the like. So 11% is a lot to talk about, and it comes from a lot of places. So let me catch up with the presentation here. There's a keyboard. All right. So County Unincorporated has a bit of the lion's share there at about $26 billion, followed very closely by Savannah. Then we see Puller holding strong, and then you just kind of see it spread out across the rest of our municipalities. But all of those add up to the county overall and the school overall assessed values. So looking at the county overall, and I've got kind of a weird thing going on here the way this printed. These two pages should go together. I'll navigate you best I can in there between them. But we do year-to-year comparisons so we can figure out where things are going. So on the right side of the page over there, you can see 2020 is kind of where we really start to see things get a bit on the escalation side of things. So a couple things about this. Your very first row there, overall market values. Below that, the assessed values and new construction. Those are going to be pretty big numbers we're going to watch grow tremendously during our pandemic years. So also our parcel counts go up significantly as well. New developments come through, big parcel tracts get divided, and we see new neighborhoods go up all over the place. We're seeing these days about 1,500 to 2,000 new parcels each year, just in terms of developments. That's not to say what's happening to the existing parcels. But curiously enough, new homes built, you can see below 1,000 there for a few years. I'm going to flip over, and we can see when 2022 hit, we're up in the 1,200s, and we're seeing basically the same trend all the way in the 24. And we can certainly see our property values, that top row up there. In 21, $48.6 billion. 2023, like I said, 11% increase. $64.6 billion was the fair market value for the county last year. We're talking big, big, big increases year to year. And 23 was certainly, as I said, the banner year for those increases. So our residential division is where a good lion's share of our work comes from. We have about 125,000 parcels total in the county. Residential has about 109,000 of those, so you can imagine most of our appraisal force is busy doing residential stuff. So new construction is certainly a big part of that, but we're market people. We like to follow what the market tells us. People buy property, people sell it, they agree on things. Those are the people that tend to tell us where values are going. They decide what that fair market value means. So what we do with that is we look at our sales. Now, not all of them are good market sales. Maybe somebody bought a property for $10. Maybe you know somebody. Not good market indicative sales. So we have to analyze that data to figure out which ones really matter, which ones are qualified, if you will. So we had about 13,000 total sales last year. Residential had to review about 7,300 of those by themselves. just to figure out what market was looking like. So we have different market areas that are not just jurisdiction-based across the county. We have 820 individual neighborhood-level market areas for 2023. Out of those, almost half of those received some kind of market adjustment, typically upwards, typically an increase. I'm sure all of us have known or been part of some kind of property exchange here in the past few years, and you know that prices that are being asked for and being sold for are going up. And that's typically what we see when we look at our data and what we're having to do for market adjustments. But about half of those neighborhoods were adjusted up last year. So again, those are different things that are adding into that 11% that we talked about before. Other information on this page here. So new construction typically starts with a permit, as long as we get the permit data right. We don't want to find a new house that went up somewhere we didn't know about. But as far as our permit counts, county and Savannah, unincorporated, are going to be the huge people that do a lot of their developments as we expect. Puller also pretty strong there. New construction is one of the numbers that we tend to gravitate towards the most because it's the clearest example of what growth really looks like for all of us. And we can see just in residential alone about $370 million in new construction alone. That's just the value of the improvement, not the land. And again, we see county unincorporated and Savannah really carrying the lion's share of that, but Puller not to be forgotten about. And Port Wentworth actually had a very strong year last year as well, as they are now becoming very desirable for residential new construction. Not to be forgotten is our commercial and industrial division. And while 81 total new construction permits may not seem that large, we are still talking $370 million. Keep in mind your hotels that are going up, your apartments, and certainly your warehouses if you've ever traveled down I-16 and been in gridlock traffic and looked around for a little while. Commercial has about 10,000 parcels they're responsible for, and they contribute a significant part of the digest. And again, we see same pattern type stuff here. County unincorporated strong, Savannah strong, Puller and Garden City definitely stronger as far as commercial industrial permits goes, about like we would expect from driving around Chatham County. Another part of our office here is our personal property division. These are the folks that value things like boats, things like aircraft, and when you see a warehouse, that warehouse has stuff in it. Things like furniture and fixtures, things like inventory. A lot of that value comes in personal property. It's going somewhere else, but as long as it's here January 1st, it still has some kind of value to it. So just alone in personal property, business inventory and assets, that's $14.5 billion alone in that. Then we see aircraft at $215 million and boats right there at about $200 million, about like we'd expect. Personal property is definitely a huge contributing factor to the overall digest. It just tends to be forgotten because real estate is so much fun to talk about. Our support services division is more, like it says, our support division. So anybody who comes in for a homestead application, anybody who receives a permit from a different municipality, or anything that's transferred property ownership-wise, first goes through our support services division. And we can see we're right under 10,000 permits for 2023. Now, of course, not all of those are for new construction. Some are electrical, some are different things. Not all of them matter for valuations, but we still receive all of them so we can make that decision on what that means for us. Property transfers there, you can see a good solid number. That was a record for us for a year, 13,528. And then we had about 4,700 people come in for new homestead applications as well for different tax abatements. So 13,000 and a half transfers, 7,400 of those alone for residential that had to be reviewed and the like, the rest of those being for commercial. Couple of important dates. I had originally planned this to be March, so some of these are a little bit after the fact there, but these are statutory requirements. April 1st is the deadline for any real and personal property returns. Not so much talked about really as much anymore. Also, the big one for us that just got done with is the homestead exemption deadline. That's important for pretty much anybody who owns property or plans to own property to know. You can come in and apply for homestead as long as you own that property on January 1st and come and apply by April 1st. It's a very important one here. So I know 24 is going to be a topic of conversation we'll try to navigate through, but I will say we typically send those notices out once the board approves those values in the middle of May. So I'm sure you've gotten notice of assessment before, right? You know what that is? Those are your appeal rights. We want everybody to know that when they get that notice from us, whether it was a value dispute or maybe you didn't get an exemption that you feel like you were entitled to. Those are your appeal rights. And you have 45 days from the date of that notice to file that appeal with us, and then it goes through the process. All that happens. You go through your millage rate process, you have your hearings, you get your digest information from us, you've already established your budget in some form or fashion. All that gets turned back over to us, and then we pull the packages together and we submit that information to the state for the digest submission process. They are the ones that then approve that and give us permission to bill and collect for taxes for the tax commissioner, and that's where that money comes from. So 23 was certainly a big year for everybody. The school is no exception. It takes a lot of work and a lot of people to go into this. We have about 70 people in our office. About half of those are appraisers. So it takes a lot of footwork and a lot of support staff to get this done. This is a very small overview of what it takes, but it's support from people like you all to make that all happen. And it's been my pleasure to come here and talk to you about this today, but I'm sure you all have questions, so please fire away.
Ms. Hall.
I'm sure that our East Plus program, since its inception, has had a really big impact on this report. Can you tell me, we're then under commercial industrial when we apply for a new school building permit and that kind of thing? That's where we fall under the commercial division.
Typically, you would see that happen. The caveat I'll offer with that is that schools are typically part of our exempt part of our digest, which is a different way of saying not on the digest. We do pick them up. We have the property characteristics, and they do generate a value, of course. But they are not really part of the digest. So when those digest figures are then turned over to you all for your hearings for millage rates and those decisions, any property the school owns that would be exempt, which I imagine would be just about all of it, would not be part of that growth.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Anyone?
Y'all usually have a few zingers for me.
Oh, Dr. Brinkman.
I'll just say thank you to your staff. I've had multiple people say that I'm not paying enough taxes. And I have continued to contact your staff to say, when was the last time somebody assessed? Is that all done right? And then they remind me that there's lots of neighbors that like to say that their fellow neighbors aren't getting taxed enough, so they deal with that call all the time. So thank you to your staff that answer the phone.
Conscience calls up and thinks they should be paying more.
Yes.
So, no. And just to be clear, we are not part of the payment process. So we are just evaluation people. We can give you better advice, but we're not going to take your money.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Oh,
I do have
that's
one
it.
question. So I'm curious, a lot of, we're seeing a lot of people come to our community from other areas of the country where their dollar might go further in this region than it may in the Northeast or so forth. Do you have a sense, or do you correlate any of the demographic influx data along with market values to get a sense of kind of how the market is trending and where we may be heading? I mean, that's kind of a bigger picture.
And that's a difficult one to really address. Yeah. Demographic studies are really not part of our evaluation processes. They sell for what they sell for.
Right.
But as personal adages and just people that I've known that have been buying and exchanging properties, certainly that's the narrative that's out there. Is I think remote work has enabled a lot of people from larger cities, certainly Atlanta and further north, that their salary may be different cost of living wise, and they're able to show up with a duffel bag of cash and just about outbid anybody who they want to. Certainly saw more of that in the beginning of 2020 with the pandemic setting in. Don't hear as much about that anymore, but I'd be remiss to say that the purchasing power that people have right now that are making these moves could not be understated.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And are you seeing us continuing to trend, as you mentioned, our most recent 11% increase is significant. Are we continuing on that trend?
The way I will answer that is, has anybody heard of Savannah or Chatham being referred to as Boomtown?
Yeah.
I don't think you can pick up a real estate publication or even a retirement publication anywhere these days without somebody in full color print saying Savannah is the place to be.
Yeah.
You can walk around downtown at any point during the day and there's people shoulder to shoulder just about coming to see the place. Certainly they are moving here, and certainly their money is still doing a lot of the talking with that. We've seen news coming out of Atlanta that office buildings are not being utilized and maybe converted to residential living spaces. We are not seeing any sort of slowdown whatsoever in our market here in Chatham County. We see properties that are on the market maybe a bit longer, but when some properties were on the market maybe about 2 hours, 6 hours could be a bit longer, if we could be a little bit tongue-in-cheek about that. But we have not seen any kind of shift in any different direction at this point to say anything's changing.
I've heard anecdotally that some of the warehouse might be slowing a little bit. Have you seen any of that within your office?
We've
far as
not
the new
seen
warehouse
that, but I did
construction?
read an article this morning to the tune of the issues going on with the bridge collapse has actually sent more port activity down our way.
Right.
So until that's figured out, I can't imagine that narrative is going to have a lot of traction.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Mr. Johnson?
Do you know off the top of your head, because I can't find it anywhere in here, of what's the percentage of personal real estate has homestead exemption on it?
We usually see about half,
Okay.
a little more than half. I think this year, I don't have the final numbers, about 55,000 residential properties currently have some form of homestead out of about 110, so right there, about 50%.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much. Always a pleasure.
Okay. Now we're back on schedule. We will have our event update on safety and security.
Good morning, Mr. President, distinguished board, or superintendent. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to be here on this morning. I have some prepared remarks that will be brief, and I know you would appreciate that. Safety and security in our school district is a team sport. It requires everybody working together to keep our school district safe. Effective security protocols and dedicated events play a critical role in managing potential risk, and risk management for sports events is essential for preventing any incidents. Measures to enhance stadium security, sports events, access control, emergency management response, all these things must be taken. On this morning, we have Lieutenant Justin Pratt, our emergency management coordinator, and Mr. John Sanders, director of the athletic department. They're here to share some security measures that are being taken to ensure the safety and security of all of our spectators, students, staff, players when they're at these events. This morning, we'll talk about the invisible work that is being done behind the scenes. We won't get into a lot of details due to the sensitivity of the information, but we will share some security measures and strategies that are currently being implemented by campus police, the athletic department, our communication department, at school events today, and what we'll be doing in the future to enhance those efforts. We'll talk a little bit about some training opportunities that we have received and collaborations with law enforcement and first responders throughout Chatham County. Welcome, Lieutenant Pratt and John Sanders.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
All right, so I've broken this presentation down into current police initiatives and future initiatives. Same for the athletic side. So for us over in campus police, some of our current initiatives, we've increased our staffing presence at all of our events, not just athletics, but all events district-wide. We want to make sure that we have appropriate staffing to respond to anything that may occur. We have implemented security patrols. Instead of just posting officers around the complex, we have people roving the parking lots, everywhere around. If it's on a campus, around the campus parking lots, just to make sure there's nothing happening that, we're not able to see. We do have game-specific response planning between not just campus police, but academics, athletics, and other stakeholders. We work together weekly to, to discuss all of the contests that are happening, all of the practice events that are happening, to make sure that we have appropriate staffing for any of those events. We've been working on clear and concise communication, not just pre-event, but also during the event. And John will talk a little bit about some of the messaging that happens during the games. But we work with the communications office, athletics, the schools, to make sure that all of the messaging is concise, goes out, and makes sense, and everybody's duly informed before they come to an event. Screening for this school year, we've added the weapons detection system to the metal detecting screening that we've already had in place. So this is just complementing what we've already been doing, but it allows us to screen more people faster, more efficiently, and get people in there. It cuts down on a lot of the lines and a lot of the people that are having to wait to get into the event by getting them in and screened efficiently. And we've also been attending a lot of training. There are national training programs that the state offers through GEMA, the Georgia Emergency Management Agency, sport and spectator safety training, courses, 3-4-day courses and seminars where we learn how to plan for events, how to safely evacuate during an emergency, how to respond to emergencies. And it's not just campus police attending. Athletics has had opportunities, and so it's something that we've done as a whole district to prepare for. And it's multi-agency training. When I attended it, it was held at Georgia Southern, so there was a lot of the collegiate, athletic programs there, so we were all kind of learning things together. So some of our future police initiatives, things we're working on, is additional education opportunities, like what I just spoke about, enhancing surveillance. As we've been adding cameras to our facilities and to our athletic facilities, we've been trying to be a lot smarter about how we put those cameras in, what type of cameras. We have camera trailers now that we can deploy to a parking lot to get additional coverage if we have more people expected than normal. But so we've got, we're working a little bit smarter, a little bit better on some of our surveillance techniques. Public awareness campaigns, like we talked about earlier, making sure we have clear, concise communication, and then additional collaboration with municipal response agencies. It's not just the district that come together to plan for these events. When we host events at Memorial Stadium or at the Pooler Complex, we're bringing in those response agencies, not just law enforcement, but fire and EMS and the emergency management agencies, to make sure that we're all communicating and we all are working towards the same goal. And then implementation of crowd control measures to prevent overcrowding. I know athletics is working on, limiting tickets, maybe limiting, certain age groups unless they have a parent. So there's a lot of things that we're working on to try to manage the crowd a little bit more effectively and efficiently.
All right, good morning. So athletics, obviously we've been doing this for probably about 5 years. Chief Enoch with myself and our departments got together and came up with the clear bag procedures that we've been doing and the security screenings. It started out kind of slow, but we've learned a lot of lessons over the years, and I think we've done a very good job of having our events and very safe. Obviously, that we've had some instances, whether it's with athletes on the fields or on the court or with some spectators, but if you look at the number of activities that we host during a year, it is very few and far between. When they happen, they look bad, and it's like a black eye for athletics and for the district, but they are very few and far between. So we think we're doing a very good job. As Justin stated, we do meet weekly with the campus police and talk about events that are coming up. We talk with our athletic directors at the schools to find out if there are any issues that they might know of coming up, if we need to provide extra security, if there's something going on in the community, to be able to make sure that we have security there to maintain the staffing. So some of the current initiatives, obviously, we have announcements before and during the contest about spectator expectations. Georgia High School has a sportsmanship statement that is read at these activities. As I said before, the weekly meetings with campus police And during the events or prior to the event, when we meet at a game, especially a major event like a football game where we have a large capacity of folks, and basketball game, our athletics team meets with the campus police team, and we kind of discuss where people need to be stationed and how that works, and if there are any issues that we found out about. Because sometimes we found out about something like mid-afternoon. Hey, we heard, this group of people might be mad at this group of people, so we talk and communicate to make sure everybody's on point and knows what's going on. So future initiatives, as you know, at our stadiums, we have these very nice video boards, and we actually experimented with some of it this year. We had videos at some of our football games that we produced at our athletics office. We had the coach speak. We had somebody reading the Georgia High School statement that we were actually playing before the game. We played it sometimes during the game. So we're talking about expanding that to use those video boards a little bit more to display information and have more videos during the game about safety, even like issues like if there is an issue, if there's something that happens, where our exits are, like a safety briefing that we do here at these meetings, right? To make sure we utilize those video boards or that technology we have to be able to get this information out to people. We've talked about sideline passes, implementing sideline passes, because sometimes we have folks who will, hey, I'm with the team, I'm this person, or I'm the water boy, or I'm this, so we're going to specifically make sure that coaches give us a list of folks who are supposed to be on the sideline, and we're going to actually have a pass. So we give it to the coach at the beginning of the game. If they don't have a pass, they don't get on the field. So we can manage who's actually on the field and who's supposed to be there and who's not supposed to be there. And then just enhance collaboration with our schools in relation to these activities. As you know, a lot of the basketball games, our office is not as involved because it's at a school site, and their school's administration and athletics department kind of runs those events. But a little more communication with them to make sure they let us know, hey, we got this basketball game coming up, and we're having our senior night. And this is something we want to try to do at our senior night to make it, more exciting for the players and the kids and all. And just so we can collaborate and maybe give them some advice on, hey, that is a good idea, or maybe we should do it another way, just to make sure we don't have any major issues and we're all on the same page and know what's going on, and make sure campus police knows what's going on with that too, so we can have, if we need extra help from their department, we can get that. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Dr. Howard Hall.
Thank you for your presentation. I'm glad you said something about that, because Woodville Tompkins, the way it's designed, is landlocked.
Right.
So whenever they have a crowd, it's very cumbersome to park. You have to park on the side of the gym, and there's a small area in the front, but the majority of the people park in the front of the school and even down from the church. And it's pretty, difficult. Walking back to your car, it's dark. So I'm quite sure that Ms. McGuire contact you guys to ensure that there's extra security out there due to not having anywhere to park, because the school, of course, is landlocked. And also with the middle school basketball games, sometimes they can pull a crowd that is not the average crowd. And I noticed, for example, Hubert is landlocked in a sense as far as where people park. So having that extra security out there and people is good.
Dr. Freeman?
Thank you, as always, for working diligently to keep our students, our faculty, our staff, and any spectators safe. I feel that the board members and people that work at the district understand how big this is. This isn't just a Chatham County issue. This is a national issue. There is a national center for spectator sport safety out of the University of Southern Mississippi. It's great to know that a lot of these things that you have implemented, that you're working on implementing, are the standards now. The way that we can metal detect, but they stay out in the parking lot. So super great to hear that now let's put up the camera systems does it cost money? Yes. Is it worth it? Yes, because safety is all of our jobs. So thank you for being on the front lines of that, and thank you for your continued efforts.
Mr. Johnson, then Mr. Smith, then Hoskins Brown.
I want to thank you, each one of you guys for this presentation and all the hard work that y'all put in over this past school year because of some of the stuff that happened at some games, which is very unfortunate. My question is this, is that I know it's very easy to collaborate when it's a Savannah school versus Savannah school. How much collaboration are we getting when it's one of our public schools with the private school or one of our public schools with a different district?
I think that's a good question. We recognize the need to have enhanced collaboration. We know that when we're the only ones committed to a high standard of safety at events, and if the other team or home team doesn't have the same commitment, then we're going to have some gaps. We're engaging those schools, those private schools and out-of-town schools to make sure that we're all on the same page. I have seen a lot of movement in a positive direction in terms of communication, in terms of expectation and how we work together. The private schools that we enjoy a great relationship with are presenting resources to help us. We recognize it's going to take them a little time to get up to speed, and it may cost us a little more, although we're not the home team, and the home team would be responsible for the security. We recognize that it's a team sport, as I said, and that we will participate and do what we can because our school staff, our spectators, will be there as well, and so we all will put a little bit in the pot to make sure those events in the future are safer. Okay, but it's a progress. It's a process.
Thank you.
It's a good question.
Mr. Smith?
Thank you. Thank you tremendously for this presentation. Thank you for everything that you do. I would like to ask a couple of questions. One question would be this. At this moment, do we have a social media monitoring process or program in place?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
We're constantly monitoring social media. It's forever changing.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I was looking at a little while ago was a fraudulent email that went out that was trying to scam people out of money. That's floating out of social media. It's out there, and we're constantly looking at it. We recognize the threats that are associated with social media. We do have some folks that are dedicated to that monitoring, and we're working along with a lot of our collaborative partners. When I talk about the invisible work, the Fusion Center, we work with Homeland Security. We work with the Savannah Police Department, Sarek, who's constantly looking and sharing information. And then we have our own efforts and initiatives that we're putting in place to monitor as well. So it's something we're continuing to build on and improve. As threats change, as conditions change, we're changing too. But yes, the answer to your question is yes, we are monitoring social media.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Last question for you. I know that everyone here knows and agrees that safety is one of the top priorities. I would like to know, do you all have anything that you can identify that we need to help you with to achieve safety?
Well, again, education. We need all stakeholders, parents need to, they got skins in the game. Everybody has skins in the game. It's a team sport. The more eyes and the ears that we have, the See Something, Say Something initiative is important. I can't tell you how many times we received information through the See Something, Say Something platform that we've been able to get ahead of things and prevent things from happening. So we just need to have more education, more of an awareness that we're all in this together. In terms of equipment, staff, I think we're making progress. We're on par in terms of what the threats look like today. I think we have allocated resources to put certain things in place. Given all the challenges that we have, I think we're doing a pretty good job. Can we do more? We're hiring more people. You work with salaries, so we're able to compete in the marketplace. So we're making a lot of progress in that direction.
Okay.
Dr. Hoskins Brown?
Thank you. I want to echo the comments of my colleagues about the appreciation for the work that you've done. And additionally, the work that you did prior to the experiences that made you ramp up. You weren't starting from zero on the activities that you've been trying to do to make our activities safer. I've seen that as a spectator, and I appreciate it. And I just wanted to point out that I'm seeing the differences in our region where those things aren't in place. I've gone to a couple of events that are only about 1 hour away, and I have been able to notice, I won't say that I felt unsafe, but I've been able to notice that the things that I experience in Savannah-Chatham County that make me feel safe, I'm not seeing in some places. I'm seeing open gates. I don't see clear bags. I see arguments that are getting dealt with, but I just really want to acknowledge that the structures that we have in place make it much easier to feel safer as a parent spectator going to a facility and knowing that you're going to experience just that thing that you went there for. And I know it takes a lot of effort and it takes investment from us, and I appreciate it.
Thank you for those comments. One of the biggest enemies of safety and security is convenience and complacency. The convenience, security requires you to do something extra in order to be secure. And the complacency is that because it never happened here, we think it won't happen. And so what we try to do is get ready. We stay ready so we don't have to get ready. We don't want to have to try to get ready in the middle of a storm. And so our thought process, our mindset is always to stay ready. We learn from incidents all over this nation. It doesn't have to happen and land in Chatham County. It just has the potential of showing up. And so we owe it to our students, we owe it to our staff, to our visitors to do everything we possibly can to make sure we have a safe learning environment so they can get the 5-star education that they come to get every day.
Ms. Grabowski?
Thank you again for your presentation and for all the hard work that you're doing. Clearly, it makes a difference and it shows. So I want to echo the appreciation from former board members. Definitely appreciate the proactive approach to minimize events, but unfortunately they do happen. So I'd like to know if you have the tools in place to for consequences when we do have events. And I know that we also have had some events that have been adults who have been the perpetrators. So we don't have the same ability for consequences that we may have with students or faculty. Can you talk a little bit about what you have in place and if there's anything that we as a board policy-wise need to be considering for the consequential side?
So yeah, communications, and education and communications is important in terms of expectations of behavior of spectators when they come into our venues, our sports events, what's expected of them. During that particular time, our communication department is going to put out information so spectators know what behaviors is allowable and what's not allowable and what the consequences will be. I think our policies that are in place, and we can review those, I think they're sufficient. They just have to be implemented and executed with fidelity. And so, yes, I think we have the tools. We're learning. Every incident we learn from, and we come back and we try to put things in place. We don't talk about it as much as we should. But we're constantly seeing gaps, and when we see those, we come together and try to fill those gaps. One of the good things about it is that visitors, spectators can now see games virtually. They can actually, if they want to see their loved ones, they can actually. You don't have to actually be there at the event itself. Our athletics department, and John, you can talk a little bit about that, is creating opportunities for people to see their loved ones or fans of a particular school to see that in other ways. The selling of e-tickets, controlling, how many tickets are sold so you don't just, overfill a particular venue that's not built for that. So yes, the consequences, you can, just like anywhere. You're going to be held accountable for it in a criminal setting. Students will be held administratively and can be held accountable in juvenile court. And so education is important. We talked about cascading. It's a big word that our superintendent uses. Cascading messages throughout the entire district in terms of expected behavior and having interpreters of that. So we're going to be talking about that everywhere in order to stay on the prevention side. Our investments are in prevention. If we can prevent it from happening, that's where we need to put our money.
Well, and that was my second question. So on the prevention side, you mentioned the see something, say something. Can you just very quickly touch on what that looks like, how people can report if they do see an incident of concern?
It's the most effective platform that we have in this district. Lives have been saved. We have gotten ahead of incidents. People are using this platform to get us information. We need more. If I don't know it's broken, I can't fix it. And so by everyone participating in this, I mean, even you as elected board members participate when you see something, when you go places, let us know.
So my more directly, how do we let you know? If somebody sees something, what do? They pick up the phone, they get on the app?
We have a number that you can call. That number is?
So we've got a couple of ways. There's a partnership with Crime Stoppers, so you can call 234-2020 and get a hold of Crime Stoppers, and they have a direct report to us.
Okay.
Plus, we also have a partnership with Sandy Hook Promise. Sandy Hook Promise has an app, they have a website, they have a phone number, they have crisis counselors that or crisis call takers that are specifically trained in school-related incidents, and they work directly with each school in our district. Each school has a Sandy Hook Promise team that those messages get relayed. They get stacked, life safety, non-life safety, and so they will get sent to us immediately to take action on.
Okay.
And we have received literally everything under the sun, from bullying to everything else, and we as a district, not just campus police, but as a whole district, can take action on that. So there's a number of ways to.
With the e-tickets, maybe is there a way when you purchase the e-ticket, the email that you receive back, to put information in there if you see something, so that people don't have to look for how to contact you?
Right.
It's right there in front of them.
So-
So I think that might be a way to increase the awareness about that.
I don't want to get ahead of my skis. We actually have an initiative that's coming up with a partnership with Crime Stoppers. It's called Campus Crime Stoppers, specifically for schools. You're going to be hearing, I thought you may have been talking about that. But we're going to be talking about that really soon. Our communication department is going to be leading that initiative. There'll be a press conference that we'll be talking about that initiative and how you can contact us directly and contact us through Campus Security Crime Stoppers. That's just for our schools.
Okay,
So
great.
that's on the way.
We'll make sure everything's on our new website, too.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Smith again?
Two quick questions. Have you realized a trend in what sport has the most traffic? Is that okay to ask? The winning team.
We all are. The answer to that is no. I think it's more challenging at both events. Basketball games are challenging. I mean, I think all sports event presents its own challenges, right? I would say that when they're all in one area, in close proximity, it's more difficult. But even big stadiums have thousands of people. I mean, it presents different challenges. And so that's why each event is looked at individually. Our security plans for a basketball game is going to be different than a football game. Gotcha. Or a volleyball game, or a baseball game. So we just look at them individually. We look at the number of spectators that come, and we design plans around that.
Gotcha. Awesome. And you made a mention of SPD. They've been supportive and helpful to us.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
They are. I'm a former SPD officer, and that's home for me.
Awesome.
And as well, the Sheriff's Department is a huge. Let me just tell you this: wherever all of our law enforcement partners step up, the county, all the municipalities, they are huge partners of ours, and they got stakes in the game. They recognize that.
Beautiful.
And they show up.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you very much. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
All right. Next, we have our charter school report. First of all, we have Coastal Empire Montessori.
Good morning, everyone. Happy spring. It is nice to see you all and be here to share some news from Coastal Empire Montessori. With me today is Mr. Atlee Fleming Prince, one of our SEMCO board trustees, and he will close out today's presentation with a great view to Coastal Empire Montessori's future. Without further ado, let's move into the review of the Chevron report, which covers all of last school year and the first semester of this school year. We submitted 3 different items to you for your board packets. This presentation, some detailed student performance data, and Mr. Prince's comprehensive remarks. And there's a second version of that you've been given in hard copy today. I will move through the materials so that we can cover everything in our allotted time. As far as the Chevron report goes, Coastal Empire Montessori meets or exceeds standard in 4 domains. For any indicator where the score was less than 100%, an explanation and or related information was submitted in the charter school response that is on page 7 of your Chevron report. The Chevron report does show that our school did not meet standard in 2 domains, academic performance and board governance. Both of the sub-areas of academic performance are addressed in the charter school response and, well, as much as the character limit would allow, and we will also further address them here and in the future as we go through our school improvement efforts. As we discuss this area, please note that this academic performance is based solely on 2023 GMAS scores, which is only one source of data, albeit a critical one. Our school implements numerous other formative and summative assessments, performance on which is tracked by the school's leadership team and the academic committee, and these measures show substantial growth. Many even show favorable comparisons to the district. For instance, last year's spring iReady scores. That said, SEMCO is committed to the school improvement work that's underway, which is being amplified by support, guidance, and resources coming from the CSI process. I do think it's important and hopefully valuable for you to share our school's main academic improvement initiatives, which have been in place since the summer, but which also fit right into the school improvement work that the CSI process is bringing. We have substantially enhanced our focus on standards-based instructional planning, which is driven by detailed collaborative lesson plans that link to learning outcomes from the standards, to follow-up work, to mastery, to assessment of that mastery, and at our school, they even link to the work plans that are used in the Montessori classrooms. We are taking our Montessori curriculum, which is aligned to the Georgia Standards of Excellence, and we are situating that inside of the Georgia Department of Education frameworks that provide units, that provide a pacing guide, and that is essentially resulting in our revised and improved curriculum maps. You know that one of the fundamentals of Montessori is follow the child, work at your own pace, but we also know that in public Montessori, there is a tension with criterion reference testing, and we want to be able, you've heard me for years talk about balance. We want to get better at that balance, and this is a huge move forward in that respect. We have trained on and enhanced the consistency of implementation of a program called the Montessori Reading Acceleration Pathway, which is our structured science of reading, phonics, scope, and sequence. And the teachers are reporting great improvement with the younger kiddos on their phonics and phonemic awareness skills. As you know, we have brought pre-K back to Coastal Empire Montessori, which allows teachers in our primary classrooms to double their time with students to help them develop the strong foundation needed to move into lower elementary. 1 year is just not enough time. We have continued through professional development and collaborative practice to get better and better at using iReady as several things. One is a targeted instructional tool for students to get better at using iReady data for instructional planning, and to use the iReady growth monitoring feature of that platform as a bridge to both the diagnostic benchmark and then also to GMAS. And in a moment, you'll see some data that shows this bridge very well. And finally, we are fully embracing the CSI process and using it to its full benefit, even though we are just in the planning phase. And not just a symbolic representation of that is one of our partners, Dr. Jaquetta Jenkins, is here with us today because we're already close partners. I would also like you to keep in mind some information about the student population at SEMSIS. Come visit us, come see our students. But as you consider our students' academic performance, I want you to know this. Our special populations continue to grow, and as you can see from the chart, just 44% of our students are served in Tier 1. The Chevron report shows you that our SWD population is 21%, which is 6% higher than the district average, but that percentage has grown this year to almost 23%. And also please note that this does not include our pre-K students with IEPs, of whom we have several, who are served in one of our primary inclusion environments. Another 5% of our students have 504 plans, and over 25% are served in MTSS Tiers 2 and 3. We also have seen a huge growth in our English language learner population with a 187% increase from just last year. We continue to work very diligently at diversifying our capabilities as a school and as an instructional staff in order to meet the needs of every single one of our unique learners. I'm going to very quickly click over to some performance data that I brought with me today. My Google Slides and my PowerPoint didn't want to talk to one another, so have to do it this way, but you do have this information in your packets as well. I know that I'm running out of time, so we'll quickly go through this. I'm happy to answer any questions at the end. We are tracking substantive growth in our students' performance from fall 23 to winter 23-24 on their iReady benchmark in ELA. And this data that you see here and in most of these slides, the format comes from the data notebook that we use as part of the CSI process. And you'll notice that this shows projected content mastery on the GMAS weighted for CCRPI. So this is not just iReady performance. We also see strong growth from fall to winter math. As for fall to winter Lexiles, We see the same thing, and in fact, our students' winter Lexile scores are showing higher than last year's GMAS Lexiles. So that's a great trend. Our subgroup data shows gains as well, with 3 of our 4 subgroups showing enough progress in winter to hit their growth targets. We're not going to stop there, though. And then finally, this data shows an overall picture and is not broken down by grade level. So you see about a 14% gain so far in ELA and a 24% gain in math. Our 3rd to 5th grade students are taking their spring iReady now in order to have it well completed by GMAS time. And so we'll be eagerly awaiting that data. Go back to my PowerPoint. Oops. All righty, thank you so much. Oops, I'm gonna go back. Let me just get to, and I will now turn it over to Mr. Fleming Prince, who I hope you will allow just a few more minutes of time to share with you.
Thank you, Stephanie. I want to touch very briefly on the compliance with regards to the governance and leadership domain. In 7.1, we were in full compliance for the entirety of the 22-23 school year, and we are presently in full compliance. However, the performance framework for that period does not allow them to prorate that compliance. So therefore, we were penalized the entire 15 points, although we were in compliance for the majority of that time. In 7.3, on the governing board training, we recognize that we were in the process of transitioning old board members off and new board members on. We have them on now, and I'm proud to say, in checking with our tracker with Georgia Charter School Association before I came down this morning, that the entirety of our board should be fully trained, including the new members. Mr. President, board, Dr. Watts. ED has taken a micro perspective in her presentation. I would like to have us extend our lens just a bit and provide a macro perspective response update related to SEMCO's strategic planning and school improvement in relation to the Chevron report and by inference our recent comprehensive support and improvement CSI designation. SEMCO board and staff started the 23-24 year with a heightened focus on a dual mission. One, to finalize the increasingly time-restricted and complicated preparation for the transition into a new facility for the next school year. And 2, to find the right formula, that sweet spot, if you will, to drive academic success within a Montessori pedagogical format. The administration had instituted mandatory Montessori training for the entire staff. The director of academics had employed different strategies over the preceding months to increase mastery of the GMAS standards consistent with the new tools that the extensive training had provided, with iReady as our predictor of progress. However, frankly, both the board and the administration were simply not satisfied with the pace, nor the consistency of the results, and decided to reshape things a bit, to institute a new operational paradigm, a shift change. Over the pursuing several months, the school aggressively instituted recommended changes identified through its own self-assessment in the school's own comprehensive needs assessment report. This assessment was, in retrospect, surgically on target. The SEMCO board also simultaneously began taking proactive and comprehensive steps to address key factors impacting the school's performance and to chart a course for our short and long-term direction. The board also adopted an all-hands-on-deck wraparound approach to provide the administration with any and all the additional resources and support it might need to accomplish this task. For you see, failure was just not an option. We first knew that we had to diagnose, then treat. We must first understand what was going on before people could understand us. So we commenced together the task of understanding. No happy talk, no excuses, no exceptions, just 100% commitment to progress. Each individual member's staff and board efficacy to that commitment was challenged. Those who have accepted that challenge understand the work before us and have enthusiastically accepted the task. Those who haven't, we wish them well. As good stewards and managers of our funds, the board fortunately had the financial resources to search nationally for the best consultants to guide us in this process. After a comprehensive national search, our governing board contracted at the beginning of the year with not one but two consulting firms, High 180 Educational Consulting and 21 Cobalt, and had them form a collaborative contract for services which had never been done before, related to development of a strategic plan for a collaborative contract of services. A central part of this collaborative contract was the commissioning of a deep dive operational assessment to identify key areas of weakness and opportunity, and more importantly, root causes. Today, the wealth of data, supported information is being used to guide our board's priorities and action planning. The operational assessment assessed multiple domains, including legal and regulatory, leadership and governance, but of course, top of mind was academic program and outcomes. Across these domains, the consultants conducted an analysis and review of multi-year qualitative and quantitative data, artifacts, policies, and procedures, and reports. They conducted site visits, board meetings, surveys, interviews, etc., and they provided us a preliminary report midway so that we could start action planning before the final report was presented. The information gleaned from the operational assessment, which further expands the school CNA report, is very helpful as we collaboratively work with the state's continuous improvement team. I see Dr. Jenkins is here today, and with the district in developing short and long-term action plans to improve academic outcomes in other areas of the school. We have left nobody in the stands, nobody on the bleachers. Everybody must get on the field and huddle up. And Dr. Jenkins has joined us in that huddle, and we're so proud of that. We ask for your support and appreciate your guidance and partnership in this process. Our board and administration are dedicated to continuous improvement, and we are taking immediate and concerted action to make necessary changes that will ensure Coastal Empire Montessori produces strong student academic outcomes and that we deliver on our mission. In this regard, no happy talk, the board is restructuring the administrative team to provide the executive director with a strong and accomplished academic partner to help pilot this ship. The executive director, Stephanie, and her search committee are well underway with accomplishing this goal. They are in the interviewing process right now. For the past 15 years, Coastal Empire Montessori had the distinction of being the only charter Montessori school in the entire state of Georgia. This is singularly evident of the progressive vision of folks here in the Coastal Empire, but more importantly, the commitment of this board, your predecessors, to operate outside the box and not be constrained by the existing norms of the time. You alone provided Simpsons with this awesome Montessori privilege, as we say in the Montessori world, to educate the whole child for the world. This awesome privilege, however, comes with a parallel and awesome responsibility to those entrusted to our academic care, to their parents, and of course to you, board members, the grantor of our charter. We get it clearly, 2020 vision. We promise you this: to turn over every stone, to make every effort, to pursue every path, to leave no opportunity untaken, to continue to make us worthy of the trust that our stakeholders have placed in us for the past decade and a half. With your continued support and guidance, we will march forward to the next 15 years with the development of a new 5-year strategic plan as our guiding star, the transition to a new facility as our base of operation, and with a renewed commitment to an expanded mission and vision. Thank you very much.
Any comments?
He left no rock unturned. Great job. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Okay. Yes, Ms. Bowski.
Thank you for your update and your report. In your unturning of stones, have you been working with the state Montessori Society on, particularly in aligning with some of the Montessori training? As you mentioned, it's that balance between the pacing of a Montessori education and then the requirements of the state. Are you working any with the state Montessori or AMS or any of the other Montessori resources?
Yes, we are AMS affiliated. Our teachers go through the Montessori Teacher Education Institute of Atlanta's training. We are fully linked in and always have been with Montessori Partnerships for Georgia and have served, although we admittedly struggle with certain student outcomes, have served as a model, has served as mentors for the burgeoning Montessori programs across the state of Georgia. Our little sisters up in Forest Park, Sankofa Montessori Charter School, which opened this year as the second Montessori charter school in Georgia, spent 2 years ago a week embedded with us, and we have visited with them this year. We're collaborating with them. They are struggling with the same kinds of things that that balance, that forever challenge of the balance. But what we have sort of come to accept is that we know ourselves a little better, and that Montessori is always going to be our how, but our what is has shifted to what we know we need to do in order to be able to have our children produce in the way that our stakeholders expect. They do a lot of wonderful things. And again, I invite you, I implore you to come out and visit and see us at our current site, and then certainly bridge the gap to our new site with us. But we're ready. We get it.
Dr. Howard Hall.
Thank you for your very thorough presentation. I just have one question. How are you using your Title I funds to supplement and or to improve student achievement? I know you have the state working with you now. Dr. Jenkins is out there with you all, and she's here today. Thank you for coming out today, Dr. Jenkins. So can you just kind of give a brief synopsis of what you're doing with your Title I funding?
Yes, ma'am. We are not, for FY24, we are not a Title I school. We fell underneath the threshold by about 2 percentage points, and so we have had to shift this year, but luckily our board and the staff have been, not luckily, intentionally, have been great fiscal stewards, and we have been able to still have money to implement Montessori training and other school improvement initiatives. We just learned that for fiscal 25, we will once again become a Title I school, and it is our intention to use the funding predominantly to support the staffing of interventionists. You see how many of our students are served in tiers 2 and 3 in MTSS, and historically we have been able to have at least 2 interventionists on staff that we probably wouldn't be able to have otherwise, but I do not know how we would do without, to serve our most needy student populations. In addition, we have school improvement planning funding that comes with this process that we're looking at very closely. We have done, as part of our planning, through the CSI process, we're in the middle of a resource inventory, matching up the resources and tools that we use with the data, and really looking at, are we getting our money's worth, literally, out of these tools? And that's one of the huge benefits that we've experienced in this past 2 months, 6 weeks of work with Dr. Jenkins and the team, is guidance on ways that we can work better. And we have just opened our arms and taken everything in. It feels really good.
Title I school for years, and I didn't realize that you didn't
Yes,
receive
ma'am.
those funds. So did it have an impact on your scores, your reading scores in math, because you no longer had those additional funds to help supplement?
Well, I'm not going to blame it on that. I could use that, but no, because for FY23 we did have those funds, and we are looking at our 2023 GMAT scores, knowing that they need to improve absolutely. However, we were able to this year continue to provide the support of our MTSS department through the last bit of our American Rescue Plan funding. We were able to fund those positions and keep our fingers crossed that we would move back over. And I think we moved well over the threshold. Not sure, just a temporary, not a glitch with the data, but a blip in our data.
And I would just like to add, we are very fiscally sound, and so if there's ever a deficit that needs to be met, we're able to do it.
Anyone else? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, next we have Tybee.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much. Chairman Moss, board members, Superintendent Watts. I'm very proud to be here to represent Tybee Island Maritime Academy for our annual board presentation. First slide is just an overview of our GMAT scores comparison to the state and school system. With our assessment summary, as you can see, Tybee scored top 5 for proficient learner and above for all grades and subjects. We were first place for 3rd grade reading above grade level, 2nd place for 3rd grade English language arts, and 6th grade math percent proficiency learner and above. Also not indicated on here, we had a 100% pass rate for our high school algebra class for our 8th graders. We still use the map, so you can see that our winter map achievement by grade for both math and reading are indicated. And so we're going to go through our strategic plan. Our first goal is shepherding empowered learners. We actually came together, colleagues and I, about 3 years ago and started talking about what we needed to do for early literacy, that we wanted to have all of our students to be completely literate at the conclusion of 2nd grade. So we started Wilson Foundations back then. We have seen incredible success with that. Our math vertical learning has really yielded some consistency and improvement. You can see from our test scores. We continue to research best practices for implementing PBL. When you look at project-based and problem-based learning, there are opportunities for multiple colleagues to present on the standards and provide different opportunities for formative and summative assessments that way. We designed and implemented our student-led conferences in the last year. It's been great seeing our students take ownership of that and presenting and being proud of what they're doing in the classroom, collaboratively and, of course, individually. We have a K-8 data science and data literacy curriculum We teach research as an application class for students to apply what they're learning in data science to all of their classes, and that's been really an incredible part for our colleagues to see, but also our students and families. And of course, we've been very fortunate to start a robust middle school athletics program. We have just been doing that for 2 years, and softball champs for 2 years in a row has been nice.
Nice.
Goal 2 is elevate the teaching profession. We have a lot of really talented colleagues that I have the opportunity to work with. Once again, for problem-based learning, we instituted a peer review process. So in addition to doing clinical rounds with each other, they also have the chance to provide feedback on the lessons that they're creating together. We have a teacher-centered professional learning initiative where all of them create individual plans, and then we match the cohorts together so that they can accomplish the things that they need to extend their professional capabilities. We started a leader in residence role. I don't know if you know this, but in addition to a teacher shortage, there are certainly leader shortages in our industry, and not a lot of folks are lining up to be school leaders. So anytime that we can connect colleagues that think they want to do that, or we can scare them away from it, we want to. And so we started our leader in residence with one of our colleagues on staff, and that's been going exceptionally well. We have increased our teacher participation in national conferences, represented both in data science as well as some of the harder sciences, and we had a colleague travel to Stanford to work on vertical math and what math looks like throughout the ages. We have external teachers that are touring. We're very fortunate. We're still only we're the only school-wide K-8 STEAM certified program in the state. And so it's been very nice to have colleagues from Savannah-Chatham and surrounding schools in the region come and spend time with us and look at what we're doing with STEM and STEAM education. And of course, we continue to build on collaborative partnerships. We are very fortunate. We have 2 of our board members at Savannah State, and so we have an opportunity to talk about what teaching and learning can look like for some of their students that are going into secondary education. And right now we are hosting 8 student teachers in elementary education from Georgia Southern. Our truancy report, everybody is concentrating on that. I've been following the district's work as well. We're at a 96.4% average daily attendance. We certainly haven't solved everything, but we know it's something that we're always chasing after. We don't have ISS, but we do have a tiered signal system. We're always looking for restorative practices, and we had 16 out-of-school suspensions for last school year. We do intentional engagement. I've had some Savannah-Chatham board members attend our parent plug-ins. I'm very thankful for your participation in that. It is an open forum every month for our parents. We have a couple of them here today, and they could share with you that there is something that's set at the beginning of the year for subjects, and we follow what parents say they want to know more about, but also at the conclusion of each of those is an open floor for discussion. They can ask anything about anything, and I do my best to answer or have other people stand up and do that when I can't or won't. We have end of quarter showcases, so at the conclusion of every 9 weeks, I think you know we moved to a balanced calendar, so we work 9 weeks on and have 1 week off, but before we go into that, we have our students showcase those collaborative projects that they've been working on. And those are getting more and more well attended from parents and community members, and also students are getting very excited to see what each other is doing. We have a family engagement committee. We have also an ambassador program, which are people that want to represent the school but not ask for money. I don't want folks to always think that we're out there trying to fundraise. There's a lot of great things happening at our school that we want people to be mindful of. And so the ambassadors go out and they attend meetings such as this or city council meetings on Tybee or go to farmers markets and just are there to talk about our school and all the great things happening. And of course, we have our Love Your People program. Talked about our balanced calendar for targeted remediation. The other thing that allows us to do is every 9 weeks twice a year during that intersession, we provide remediation for students during that week. So they come to school, they get extra support. That has gone exceptionally well. The data from that tells us that certainly for our elementary learners, they're making gains. So that is time well spent. We have tech time during the day that also provides additional remediation during each school day. We're fully staffed with EIP and REP, and of course, as I shared earlier, we moved to Wilson Foundations about 3 years ago. Theme and program status, as I shared, we're a STEAM school, and we're very proud of that partnership with the Georgia Department of Education, as well as with Savannah-Chatham, and then we're still an Apple Distinguished School. Apple just invited some of us to come and talk about innovative school models, and so that's always nice to be supported in that way from industry. And as I said earlier, we lean heavily into collaboration at TEMA, not only in projects that students are doing, but also in their relationships with each other. We think it's a good way for them to practice before they go in the workforce. Our 2024 enrollment, you can see 429. We're right at about 423 right now. We looked at student recommitment. Last year we were at 100%. This year we're at 99% of our families returning, which led to our highest number of applications that we've ever received with the least amount of seats. So currently, our lottery finished about a month ago. We have 223 students on the wait list. It does also look like, based on the preliminary reports that we've had from folks that have accepted seats, that we'll be looking at 37% economically disadvantaged families. I know that's a metric that we're all continuing to try to provide choice for families that need support. I'm also very fortunate that we had 100% staff recommitment last year. I had about 97% staff recommitment this year. I have one colleague who's retiring. I couldn't get her to stay. And a couple of other colleagues. One, her parents bought her and her husband a house in Vidalia. I couldn't do that. Certainly not on Tybee. And then another who is getting married to someone in the armed forces. So bless them both. But we've already completed our interviews for next school year. We're already currently at 100% staffing. Everything can change, but we're very blessed by that. Financial management. Obviously, you've seen in your Chevron report, there's an area of concern related to material weaknesses from the audit. Our board treasurer is here. If there's any questions to direct to him, Mr. Mike Lynch. But as you can see, we've taken a lot of steps to make sure that that doesn't happen again. We are on our third CFO in 3 years. There has been some pretty significant changes in that leadership role, and so we went to a back office solution this last year with EdTech, and I know that they provide that service for some other schools, and they've been a great partner for us, and they've certainly done all of the things necessary before we go into this next audit. Governance, all of our board has been trained. You can see, and then, of course, we have our governance training through the Georgia Charter Schools Association. Challenges and/or opportunities and priorities. You can see we're still paying for buses. Not that you guys don't pay for buses, but we're doing that also out of our operational dollars. We're in the second year of a 5-year partnership with Kelly Tours. And so that means that we also instituted hub stops in order to provide that. All of you are aware that Chatham County is 420 square miles, and we provide transportation to every corner of it for families that say they want to attend our school. We are looking at any other options in the next few years after that contract concludes. But it's also been a great partnership for us to continue to have families take advantage of a choice to come to our school on an island. Facilities for us is still, when you look at physical plant, that's something that we're always exploring and trying to move forward on. There was a community task force that was commissioned by the Tybee City Council, and we are working closely with them. If you're familiar with some of the work at East Lake in Atlanta with Drew Charter and the YMCA, we are cultivating that partnership and looking at what could be possible for a multi-purpose facility on Tybee Island for the entire community and its residents. Right now, we're also moving forward with lease negotiations with St. Michael's Church, who has been a fantastic supporter of our school, and we don't expect that that will change. Questions?
Okay, Hoskins Brown and Ms. Hall.
Thank you. Just like the other report, really impressive and really proactive approaches to the things that you wanted to improve on. So that's really terrific. I was just kind of stimulated by your comment about studying the activities at East Lake and trying to replicate them in a way that makes sense for a community like Tybee. I remember some years ago that we visited East Lake as a district, and we were looking at that model, and I do not recall what it was about that model that we weren't able to borrow and replicate here. And I don't know if you recall any of the challenges of replicating that model in this county, or whether some of the other staff that were here and went on that trip remember. I went on the trip, but I don't remember. But I remember being very stimulated by the experience. And so any kind of perspective you can offer on that would be helpful.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Hoskins-Brown. So East Lake is part of the purpose-built communities, and I know that they have a broader scope of work now than just East Lake, but I think it all started from that. I know that they lean heavily into K-12, sort of cradle to graduation, and what that can look like. For us on the island, that is probably our biggest barrier to working with Purpose Built, because we don't envision ourselves of growing into a high school on Tybee Island. But there are a lot of other aspects of what they do and how they support communities that make sense for us. So as we continue to work on it, I'll be happy to share any insights that we have and also the barriers that we come across.
Ms. Hall?
First of all, congratulations on your attendance rates. That's something that we're really zeroing in on, so we'll be getting in touch to, see what some of your ideas are.
Thank you.
But congratulations on that. The other thing, talk to me for a minute about your vertical math program, because I think we may have that in some areas already here, but.
Right. So, and thank you for the acknowledgement. I think attendance is a struggle for all of us. I would say that for vertical math, one of the things that we wanted to look at specifically with everything going on with the new math standards that are happening through the DOE is how are we intentionally looking at providing those foundations for students as early as kindergarten, and what are the things that we're doing with math vocabulary, and how are students engaging in math in a way that maybe doesn't seem daunting. It's a lot of work also in talking with colleagues, so that in case you have an elementary teacher that's maybe math phobic, that they're able to get rid of some of their anxiety as they engage with the curriculum. So a lot of the things that we're doing right now are early staff development, talking about how we intentionally go through what students are doing in the classroom with mathematics and how teachers are communicating with them and the vocabulary that we're using to scale that up.
Well, tell me, does vertical mean that if I'm ready, I'm in first grade, but my skills are such that I'm ready to do third grade math, that you're going to see to it that is that part of the vertical? It sounds like it might be part of that continuous improvement.
It is definitely more of a continuous improvement. I mean, obviously, we don't want to hold students back if they have aptitude in a particular area, but I think what we really try to do, also especially in math, we just had a conversation yesterday, I'm not trying to push kids into calculus. If anything, I would push all kids into data literacy and data science, looking at statistics and probability and how they, experience data. It's not about pushing the kids as far and as fast as they can. It's about ensuring that all of those foundational things that they understand with mathematics have application and their ability to use that application no matter where they are.
Ms. Kowalski?
Good morning. Thank you for, or I guess afternoon now, another great presentation. It's always exciting to hear what you're doing on Tybee. And I wanted to particularly commend your slide about the learning environment. I think that has a lot to do with your success and your attendance and your teacher retention. And I was just sharing Love Your People with someone the other day as a mom with students at STEM, which I believe you started there.
Yes.
I think that those types of programs or initiatives or whatever you want to call it are so valuable, especially for our students today. It just means a lot.
Thanks so much. We talk a lot about it with our students, obviously, because we feel like it's important that they engage in that way. What we don't talk a lot about that is that we do that with staff. I'm missing a staff LYP luncheon right now. Happily to do that. But pouring into staff and letting staff know that they have an opportunity to care for each other, because that's what's going to be modeled for the students. And I think the power in kids seeing that relationship between very competent, caring adults is also extended into the classroom amongst themselves. We haven't figured it all out, honestly. I mean, obviously we have kids who have issues and we try to help them through that, but it's all about relationships. I mean, all of you are professionals and all of you know that as well. So it's okay that we can care about each other in front of kids, because that it extends to the kids.
And I think so much of what's missing is kindness, and everything that we can do to instill kindness in our children, we have to do.
Thanks.
Hang on. Howard Hall, then Mr. Johnson.
Yes, thank you for your report, and I'm very impressed with your truancy report. I commend that, and I'm quite sure that providing transportation is one area that improves that as far as your truancy rate. But what I love about this report is when I see intentional engagement. You know, normally you see parental engagement or parent involvement, but intentional engagement, and you have several bulleted activities that you actually implement. Could you just briefly tell us a little about your monthly parent plugins?
Sure. The first slide of every parent plug-in talks about the intentionality and the fact that parents don't trust us. I'm a public government school. Parents don't trust us. So if we're not talking to them, then how are we going to change that perspective, and how are we going to change that relationship, back to what we were talking about earlier? So at the beginning of each year, we survey parents. We say, what do you want to know more about Tybee Island Maritime Academy? And so then they send in a list, or they respond to a Google form, and we create that. And then at the very first meeting, we say, these are the things we're going to talk about in September, October, November, and so on. And then we create a presentation based on what our parents say they want to know more about. It could be everything from performance data. Our parents want to know that. Fiscal stewardship. It could be about our hiring process. We had a whole parent plug-in about how do you choose the teachers that work here. But then after that, we open up the floor to anything parents want to bring up. And I promise you, parents will bring up anything. I don't know if you know that. It is not structured. There's no 5-minute limit. There's nothing. There's no sign-in. They just come in and they say what they need to say. And we do our best to try to mitigate some of their concerns and respond appropriately. If someone has an individual concern about their child, obviously we'll talk to them sidebar about that at the conclusion. But for the most part, we do a very open forum, because we're trying to rebuild trust with families in communities that, for whatever reason, you know, and I've said this before, in our industry, we didn't capitalize on every opportunity that we could. You know, I remember the beginning of COVID and how parents were talking about 6-figure incomes for teachers and all the things that we need to be doing to elevate teaching as a profession. And then we, for whatever reason, allow teachers to be vilified again.
Awesome.
Michael? Mr. Johnson, sorry.
It's okay. I've been called worse things. I want to publicly actually congratulate you on the award that you recently got. And so that's great, not just for TEMA, but also for all of Chatham County to have that recognition. My question is, do you know what percentage of your students live west of the Thunderbolt Bridge?
I don't know.
Well, it's off the islands. It's off the islands.
No, I know. Yeah, no, I mean, I can estimate it's probably somewhere around 35%.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So, anyone else? I would also like to congratulate you on being named the Georgia Charter School Association School Leader of the Year. It's very nice to have someone not in Atlanta get that. So, and also I'm going to echo something that Ms. Grabowski talked about, and Ms. Hall mentioned as well. We have got, and you're doing such a great job of this, we have got to ensure that we have kindness in our schools. There are some things going on today, and when you talk to the relatives, they will say, we need more kindness. So thank you for doing that. The only comment I was going to have, but you already mentioned it, was, on the one negative that we talked about was just making sure that, your board was aware of how important, the fiscal management is and just that accountability and keeping you accountable for that. So, but I know who Mr. Lynch is, so I think you're in good hands.
Thanks.
All right.
Think so as well. I do want to say, and thank you for the public acknowledgement. I've worked in this community for 15 years, moved to Georgia to work here, and I didn't get that award by myself. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you. All right. Thank you very much. All right. Is that it? Hallelujah. Okay. Yes, I will accept a motion to go into executive session. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you.